I'm all right. Those online, others just confirm. Can you hear me so that we start? Is my screen showing as well?
Yes, can hear you and it's showing.
Okay. All right. So welcome to our fourth revision session. Welcome to our fourth revision session. So I'm sure after the last session, you have recapped quite a lot, which might assist in your final exam preparations. So the last question we did, we're on number 10, if I'm not mistaken. So the last question we did, it was number 10. So without wasting much time, let's move on to the next question, which is number 11. Porter identified 9 types of value activity in a firm, which he categorized into 2 types. We have the primary activities and the support activities. Which of the following is a support activity? So in our first revision, we did talk about the value chain, if I'm not mistaken. So we say that the organization does not just create value after we have produced the product, but value can actually be created throughout the channel, the distribution channel, from where we get the raw materials. We can add value using the ways we are using to store the raw materials. So if we store the raw materials in a secure place, store the raw materials in an area where you know they are not going to be affected by bad weather, that can aid to the value of the product that you're going to produce. So value can be added via the inbound logistics. Value can be added by the processes that we are using. Someone who is using machines might be able to produce something that is more valuable than someone who is using manual labor in some cases, because the machines, they will prepare something that is identical. They are going to make sure everything is done according to precision. So machines might actually lead to more value being added than using labor. So it depends, however, with the type of the industry. But I'm saying value can be added by the processes that we are using. So that's the process. Then after the goods have been produced, the value can be added by what we call the outbound logistics, how we are distributing the goods that we have actually produced. So value can be added by choosing the right distribution channel, by providing services such as the delivery services. So that can aid in value creation. So those can be key, especially if you're looking at value addition. Then also we said value can be added by the way we market our product. So being able to effectively market our product can actually lead to value creation. So someone might buy your product simply because of the good marketing tools that you have been able to implement. So being able to effectively market our product can assist in value addition. Then besides that, value can be added by after-sale service, being able to provide after-sale service. It also adds value. Then there are support activities such as the relationship we have with our suppliers, the procurement, the infrastructure that we have. We also have value being added based on the human resource that we have. So now over to you. We talked about this some time back. Which one is a support activity? The last question I remember, it was which one was a primary activity. This time around, we want a support activity. Precious is saying B. Others online, what are you saying? Tafara is also saying B, and I do agree. B is a support activity. So that's the good part about revision. Most of the questions now, they end up like even number 12, if you can see, number 12 relates to something that we did as well. Unfortunately, for the Word document where I was writing the additional notes, my laptop had a problem and I failed to save that one. So hopefully you were also copying along, but I think for the video recordings, some of them that I uploaded on YouTube, so you can see if you had not taken in the notes, maybe you can download any of the videos and take down the notes. So those are key areas where I was jotting down, but unfortunately, I could not save the document so that I can send you the handout. So cyclical unemployment, but all the sessions were recorded, so you can still access you can still access the document on the recordings. So cyclical unemployment refers to which type of unemployment? So for number 12, cyclical unemployment, it refers to which type of unemployment? Coletta is saying D and Precious is saying D. What about others? So we did mention this last time again. We said cyclical unemployment is as a result of the business cycles, such as recession. So this one is not a new area, so let's not waste time on this one. So number 13, an inflationary gap exists in an economy when what? So inflationary gap. So an inflationary gap, so what can cause an inflationary gap? So an inflationary gap, what can be a result, what can be a cause for inflationary gap? So inflationary gap, this is because there is a surge in demand, which is not backed by output. So demand is rising, yet the output is not rising. So what can we say is an inflationary gap exists under what circumstances? So looking at the answers here, inflationary gap, the most appropriate answer there, which might, I think, so inflationary gap, it should be B. So inflationary gap, if we're looking at the Keynesian view, this is where the demand is exceeding the employment. So demand is exceeding full employment of income. So when demand level is increasing, then there is the effectors of production are low, then there is likely to be inflation. So take note of that. So this one, it can be as a result of the increase in aggregate demand and the factors of production are not increasing. Let's move on. Number 14. Which of the following statements about price elasticity of demand is correct? So remember, price elasticity of demand. Did we talk about elasticity on the additional documents? I think we have not talked about elasticity on the additional document. So let me briefly talk about elasticity of demand. So elasticity of demand. Resume that a bit. So elasticity of demand. So we are looking at the responsiveness. This is the responsiveness of demand to any determinant of demand. So if we change the determinants of demand, how is the demand going to respond? If we change the determinants of demand, the determinants of demand we're talking about are demand is determined by price, demand can be determined by income, demand can be determined by substitutes, demand can be determined by complements, those that we have to use together, complementary products. So if we change these factors of demand, how is demand going to be affected? Is it going to remain the same? Is it going to fall? And if it falls or rises, it falls or rises by what margin? So being elastic, it means there is a very huge impact. Changing that factor affects demand by a very large proportion. So elastic, it means there is a very huge impact. Elastic means there is a huge impact. If we change the price, if we change the income, if we change the substitutes, there's a huge impact. That is elastic. And inelastic means the impact, of course, the impact is there, but is very small. The impact is very small. So elastic demand, if demand is elastic, how do we see this one? Demand is elastic if the elasticity is greater than 1. If we calculate the elasticity, if it is greater than 1, so an elasticity of 2, 3, 4, that is elastic. It shows that demand responds very much to that factor. If you change that factor, demand is going to be affected by a very large proportion. That's elastic demand. Then we have inelastic. If demand is inelastic, then elasticity is less than 1. So if the elasticity is less than 1, from 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 up to 1, then that means it's inelastic. But if it's exactly 1, it's unitary. If the demand is exactly 1, it is unitary. So if we calculate the elasticity of demand, so the elasticity of demand, the common one is the price elasticity of demand, which looks at the responsiveness of price, of quantity demanded to change in price. The price elasticity of demand, we are saying if we are to change the price, how is the demand going to respond? So in terms of calculation, you say the change in terms of percentage change. So we're saying percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. So the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in price. So what can cause demand to be inelastic? So people can still buy even if the price is increased. Why? Because the product is, or we can say what influences either demand being inelastic or elastic. What influences elasticity? It could be, number one, necessity. If the product is a necessity, it tends to have inelastic demand. And they will continue buying it even if the price is at rise. Why? They can't do without. It's a necessity. So if a product is a necessity, it tends to have inelastic demand. Besides the product being a necessity, another issue that makes the product another issue that affects the elasticity is habitual purchase. Addictiveness of the product. If a product is addictive, it tends to have inelastic demand. If it's not, it can have elastic. But if it's addictive, people can't go without the product. So they're forced to buy because of the addiction. So if it creates a habitual purchase situation, then the product you can say it has inelastic demand. Then besides that, also we can talk about the time factor. In the short run, demand tends to be inelastic. When people are not yet aware about, so I always give that example. When the shop that you normally buy your goods from increases prices, you are likely to believe, if you used to believe that the shop is the cheapest in town, the moment they increase the prices, you're likely to buy it that higher price with the assumption that if these ones are to increase their prices, it means the rest of the complex is actually increased. Before you get to know that, no, they are actually now the ones that are more expensive. You can go for a week buying the same product with a view or with the assumption that if they have increased their prices, it means everyone else has. Until maybe you hear it from someone else that, no, that shop is now the expensive one. So in the short run, when you don't have much market information, or maybe the prices have been increased, but you don't know where else you can get the product. So in the short run, the product can have inelastic demand. Then complementary products also have an impact. If the complementary products are cheaper, and even the presence of substitutes, so complementary, if you buy a car, you have to buy fuel. So if the price of cars is down, demand for fuel can tend to be inelastic. People can still buy fuel because once you have cars, you can't use them without fuel. Then also substitute. In the presence of my substitutes, demand tends to be elastic. If there are no substitutes, it tends to be inelastic. So now with that in mind, now let's go and answer the question. So which of the following statements about price elasticity of demand is correct? What's your take? Manu is saying A.
I think it's A.
Michelle, Terence is saying D. Michelle is saying B. Christian A. As this one is a tricky one. We just left with C to complete the puzzle. So, if the number of suppliers, Avara is coming in with B. If the number of suppliers of a product increase, the price elasticity of demand will fall. The number of suppliers increase. What is price elasticity of demand? Price elasticity of demand is not affected by the number of suppliers, but is affected by price against quantity. So in calculating the PED, we consider the price against the quantity. Even if we increase supplies, as long as the price and quantity are the same, then it's not going to have an effect on the PED. So now A is not correct. PED tends to be low for items that customers spend a large proportion of their income on. Necessities are relatively elastic. No, if a product is a necessity, it is inelastic. B is a tricky one. Let's check the other one. D. The longer a price change holds, the more time a product is likely to be elastic. So this one is the correct one. Why? The time factor. So they're saying in the long run, price is likely to be elastic. Like I said, in the short run, before you get information, you are likely to keep buying. That is inelastic. But once you have information, you change your buying habits. So in the long run, price elasticity of demand tends to be elastic. So in the short run, it's inelastic. In the long run, it's elastic. Then B was saying PED tends to be low for items that customers spend a large proportion of their income on. So it's not necessarily because we spend our income on, unless if they had said a necessity. So the question simply said what we spend a large amount of income on, but not necessarily a necessity. If they had said for a necessity, we'd go for B. If we usually spend a lot of money buying luxuries, if the prices are to increase, we can do without the luxuries. So B is not specifying what are we buying. If it was luxuries, if it is luxuries, then the statement B is not true. Unless if it's we are spending large sums of money buying necessities, then that can be true. Lucas Training is a small entrepreneurial organization led by Frank Lucas, who started the business 2 years ago. Frank is central to all key decisions made in the firm. His knowledge and business awareness is critical to the firm's success. Which of Handy's types, cultural types, is presented by Lucas? Terence is saying power, Tafara is saying power. Others, what are we saying as well? Michelle is going for A. So if it's an entrepreneurial organization, and there's centralization of all the decisions. That has to be power. So that's power culture. So remember, raw culture decisions are made democratically. If it's raw culture, is a case for the functional structure, where now the organization is grown. You can't have one person making all the decisions, but we are now helping each other. So it's for raw culture is more applicable for a functional structure. Then the task culture is for the matrix structure, where we simply want to achieve a certain task, then we dissolve the culture. Okay, let's move on to next question, number 16. Which of the following is an advantage of an entrepreneurial structure? Remember, that is the structure where one person is controlling, one person makes all the key decisions. What advantages can we take off from the entrepreneurial structure? Farah is already coming through with D. Michelle, D. And Precious, D. So, and D from Tanya. And I also support D as well. So there is goal congruency. Because if you are operating alone, remember, goal congruency is when you ensure that we are all working towards the same. So if you're operating alone, it's easy to ensure that there's goal congruency. But when you're now 20, others can end up pursuing their personal goals, which are different from the goals of the organization. So when there is goal congruency, is when we are ensuring that we're all working towards something. And that is possible for an entrepreneurial structure. Then, now let's move on from there. V operates a popular gym. He charges a higher price for customers who wish to use the facilities at peak time, and less for those customers who can use the gym at quiet times. What approach of pricing is this? I don't remember adding pricing to our document. Let's add pricing to our document. So pricing. So the different pricing strategies we can use. We have skimming. We have penetration. We have going rate. We have price discrimination. We have cost plus pricing. We have complementary pricing. So if we are using the skimming strategy, the skimming, we initially charge high prices. So for skimming, we are introducing our product in the market at high prices. Reason being, we want to communicate that this is of high quality. The consumers believe if something is of high price, it's also of high quality. Something that is lowly priced is normally associated with poor quality. So the good part about the skimming strategy, it communicates that the product is of quality. Communicates that the product is of quality. Then we have penetration. So penetration, this is the strategy that if it's penetration, this is the strategy that involves starting with low prices. So if it's penetration, we want to occupy the market. So we start by charging very low prices because people love cheap things. Of course, they can say it's poor quality, but if you get into those shops where they charge very low prices, even if it's poor quality, it will be paid with people. Why people still prefer something that is cheap. So charging low prices attracts a lot of people. So there's penetration strategy where we initially charge low prices. Then besides penetration, we have the going rate. Going rate, we are using the market rate price. We are using the competitive price. We are using the price that is existing in the market. Yes, hello. That's good. Got it. Okay, so the going rate. So if it is the going rate, we are charging the competitive price, the one that is being charged in the market. You start selling bread, you charge it $1, you're just charging the market price. Then the price discrimination. This is where the same product is being charged different prices. So you might discriminate based on the markets. So in some of the markets, you charge low prices. In some of the markets, you charge high prices. So your discrimination can be based on the market. So the price discrimination, you can discriminate as well based on time. So if those combis, if you notice in some areas, if you're using combis for transport, they can charge in the afternoon when it's not busy. They will charge you half the price that they charge if it's busy. That is for those that, especially for long distances, where the price is a bit high, they can reduce during the periods when it's not peak hour. So that one is price discrimination. The same journey, they are charging you two different prices. So that's price discrimination. Price discrimination is effective for services. For products, it's a bit tricky because what consumers can end up doing, they can buy from the cheaper markets and resell in the expensive markets. But for services, you can easily discriminate. I can say out of town, I charge lower prices. In town, I can charge high prices. And no one can retail that. No one can buy my teaching and go and from the cheaper market and go and resell it. Because a service, normally you get it direct from the producer. It can't be retailed. So it's effective for services. Then cost plus pricing strategy. Cost plus, this is the commonly used, where you first of all determine the cost you have incurred. So you consider the cost you have incurred. Then from that cost, you add a markup. So for the cost plus pricing strategy, you add a markup to the cost that you have incurred. So you first of all calculate your cost, then on that cost, you add a markup. That is the cost plus pricing. You are adding a profit to the cost. It can be broken down into marginal cost plus or full cost plus. Marginal cost just considers the variable cost. Then you add your profit. But if it's full cost, you consider all the costs, then you add your profit. So you can have the full cost or the marginal cost plus. Complementary pricing. This one, it works for complementary products, such as the products where you have to, if you consider the fuel and petrol that I was talking about. Let's say you are providing both. You can lower down the price for cars, then you increase the price for petrol. So you have that guarantee that if someone is to buy the car, they are forced to buy the petrol. So that is complementary pricing. Now, with that in mind, let's go and answer the question. So V is operating a popular gym. He charges high prices for customers who wish to use the facilities at peak times and less for those who can use the gym at quiet times. Okay, what is that? That's discrimination. A. Yes. Now let's move on. Hosty developed an influential model of the dimensions on which natural cultures differ. X Inc. is a company based in the country of Z, with a national culture that supports single status pay arrangements, informal styles of dressing in the workplace, and self-managed teams. There's less control here. Informal type of dressing, self-managed team working. What can we say? Is that? Individualism, I hate a why? Because they're talking about teams. These are teams. So once they are being assessed as teams, they're working as teams, then it can't be individualism. So that has to, yes, I can see a lot of C's coming through. It's low power distance. They have low power distance. It means there's less control. There are less rules. So that one, it has to be low power distance, where the environment is a flexible one. It's not an environment where the boss is after you. They don't want you to, they want you to work strictly by the book. No, so that one is a low power distance. Consider the following statements regarding a country's balance of payment. Regarding a country's balance of payment. Okay, expenditure reducing strategies involve the government deliberately encouraging consumers to buy domestically produced rather than imported goods. When the government encourages firms to buy domestically produced rather than imported goods, it's called expenditure switching. So I can put that down. So that one is expenditure switching. Expenditure reducing goes with, we want to reduce the money supply. So expenditure reducing, it goes with the contractionary policy where we increase the taxes and interest rates. So expenditure reducing, it goes with the contractionary policy. This one is called expenditure switching, where we are discouraging them from buying outside and encouraging them to buy within the country. So that statement is false. Let's move on to number 20. Which of the following attributes of an organization is an advantage of a centralized management structure? Advantage of a centralized management structure. Can Michelle is saying C, then Emmanuel said D. What about others? C. So centralized, if the organization, yes, Coletta is saying C as well. C is winning. So from which of the following attributes of an organization is an advantage of centralized structure? So if there is centralized, there is a bit of standardization, because the challenge of decentralization, other departments may end up doing things that are not. This question goes with that one of Go Concrete. So when there is centralization, there is Go Concrete. But if we decentralize, other departments may end up doing things their own way. If the opposite of Go Concurrency is lack of standardization. So another department might end up doing things that are different from what others are doing. So if there is standardization, our things are going, everything is being done the same. So standardization is an element of centralization in most cases. D wishes to analyze the internal and external issues that will affect his company. Which single model could D use to accomplish this? So which model analyzes the internal and the external? So let's look at these models. So models. Yes, I can see the C coming through here. So let's have the models. So for the models, we have the pest. For the pest, this looks at the industry. We are analyzing the external environment of the business. So the pest analyzes the external environment. So it looks at the political, the economical, the social, the technological factors that affect the business from outside, the external environment. Then besides the pest, so we have the pest, then we have the SWOT. So this one analyzes both the internal and the external environment. So it looks at our internal strengths and weaknesses. So strengths and weaknesses, that's the internal environment. What are we good at? What is our strength and what is our weakness? Then the O and the T, those are the opportunities and the threats. So what opportunities do we have in the environment outside the business? What is it that we are not doing that we can take advantage of? Then what is it that is likely to affect our business? Those are the threats. What is likely to have a negative impact on our business? So those are the threats. Then besides, then we move on to, we have the 5 forces model. So the 5 forces model, this one is used to analyze, if it's the 5 forces model, is used to analyze the competitive environment. So the organization wants to analyze its competitive environment. So that's when we use the 5 forces model. Then value analysis. We can use the value chain. To analyze where are we adding value. In our processes, are we adding value? Which other one was there on the answers? Oh, so I think those are the, so with that in mind, what is the correct answer for 21? So value chain is internal process. We are analyzing our internal processes. It's not external. Terence is saying C. C. Let's move on. A manager is considering whether to accept a bribe, she has been offered. She has stated that she does not believe that there is a universal moral code. Does not believe that there is a universal moral code that she should be following. And that she wishes to make the decisions that benefit her regardless of how it might affect others. So let's start with the pluralism. The pluralism, we want to consider everyone. We want to, the decision benefiting everyone. Egoism, I want for something that benefits me. As long as it's right to me, then it's fine. Relativism, there is no one hard and fast rule to be followed. Absolutism, certain actions are wrong. You can't debate on this, they are wrong. So what can we say about A, about this manager? Yes, I'm seeing a lot of C's coming through. Yes, C is correct. So if they're doing something that benefits themselves only, that's egoism. Then if they are saying there's no code that is preventing them, it's saying, it's more like they're agreeing that there is no one universal way to say this is right or wrong. So since there is no one universal way of saying this is right or wrong, that is relativism. If it is absolutism, it actually says no, certain actions are not right. And we can't say pluralism because she is thinking of doing a decision that benefits herself only. And so the correct answer there is C. Which of the following ethical threats occur when an accountant promises his client when an accountant promotes, his client's interests to the point where his objectivity is compromised, promoting the business of the client until it ends up affecting your objectivity? What do you call that? Tafara is coming in with a B. promoting the business of the client. Coletta B as well. Tanya B. And B is correct. That's advocacy thread. So advocacy, your client. You are representing your client. You're advertising on behalf of your client. That's advocacy. So that one, it has to fall under advocacy. Which of the following would not prevent an individual from becoming a non-executive director? Take note of would not. We can't say because of this condition, they can't be a non-executive director. So it can't be a reason for excluding them. So it can't be a reason for excluding them. Okay, let's move on. Marty, which one is the answer? You are all agreeing to A. Tanya is saying B. Emmanuel is saying C. So A, B, C. So it means that no answer so far. B is now winning. I have now 3 Bs, 4 Bs. And B is the correct one because it's not a prerequisite that you should at least have been a non-executive director. We want someone who is independent. A non-executive director, remember, they are watching the activities of the executive, of which close ties, that one, it makes them less independent because it means the director is their friend. So they won't be able to tell us, well, their presence should be to alert us of the executive director's actions, what could be wrong with what they are doing, and also making sure there is a goal congruency between the company and the executive directors, of which having close ties, that one, no. Then the first one, the problem with the first one is that if they are participating in the share options, it means they have interest in the company. A non-executive director should be someone independent who does not have any direct benefits that they want from the performance. M is currently a member of a temporary committee that has been asked to investigate the launch of a new product, after which it will be disbanded. This is an example of an ad hoc committee. So remember, we have different types of committees. So the committees, we have the ad hoc, or we can call it the task committee. We have standing committee. We have the executive committee. Then the other ones, we did talk about them, the remuneration, nominations, but these ones, I think we did not talk about this. So ad hoc or task committee, this is a temporary committee. It's formed so that we achieve a certain task. Once that task has been achieved, we dissolve the committee. So the ad hoc or task committee is for a specific task Once the task has been completed, we dissolve ad hoc committee. The standing or permanent committee, this one stays in the organization. Members will join and leave the organization, but the committee will still remain in the organization. And then executive committee. The executive committee, this one consists of seniors. Christine, kindly switch off, turn off your mic so that I don't hear your background noise. So we have the permanent committee and we have the executive committee. So the executive committee or the standing committee have said this one stays in the business for a long time. Then the executive committee, it consists of seniors. In that committee, we actually have seniors of the organization. It might be including directors, it might be including the CEOs, might be including the senior managers. So the committee includes like the board of directors. So if it is an executive committee, it includes the seniors. Now, with that in mind, let's go and answer the question. Faith is saying A, Michelle is saying true, Terence is saying true, so Coletta true. So I think A is gaining ground, and A indeed is correct. So let's move on to number 26. Which of the following is the name given to the type of computer-based information system that uses and combines mathematical models to assist with finding solutions to management problems? So this one, we are looking at a system that helps in finding solutions. It can use mathematical models. Management information system, this one is, it summarizes information from the transaction processing system, and it can be for this one. Expert system, it can perform functions like a human being, such as calculating taxes, calculating the payroll issues. So that is an expert system, not this one. Executive information system, this one is used by senior managers. It collects internal and external information used by management in decision making. So the executive information is for strategic level decisions, where it involves internal and external information that the seniors can use to make the decisions. The decision support system is used to solve complex decisions, and it is the one that can include mathematical models in finding the solutions. So B is the correct one here. Which of the following is not necessary in order for financial statements to be considered true and fair? If you are saying the accounts, the auditor comes to check the books, then they say the accounts are true and fair. What is not necessary, or what is it that they, if they say it's true and fair, what is it that they are not saying here, which is not part of what they'll be talking about? Are they saying the accounts are free from fraud? Are they saying that the accounts have been prepared using generally acceptable practices? The accounts are free from significant errors. The accounts have followed relevant standards. Okay, Tafara is saying B. Unfortunately for this one, let me assist. Auditors do not give 100% assurance. If we hire an auditor to conduct an audit for the financial statement, they do not give 100% assurance. So what do I mean by that? So if they do not give 100% assurance, it means there can still be some errors because they don't check everything. Auditors are not going to check every item by item, but they check for gross and material misstatement. So they are not guaranteeing that the accounts are free from error and fraud, but they guarantee that they are free from material errors or gross errors. So they are not saying all. The term all fraud, that one is a tricky one. Because if a dollar is missing, they might not investigate that. They just investigate material amounts. And they need to ensure that the standards used are the right standards. They need to also follow the standards when they are preparing their audits. So the correct one is A. So the report from the auditors is not a guarantee that all the accounts are free from all errors. The creation of corporate governance regulation is not an ethical safeguard to put in place by ACCA. So corporate governance is a system we use in the company that prevents errors, that will prevent fraud. If we have a corporate governance system, it can help in making sure that the organization is running smoothly and the errors and fraud are reduced. And the question is saying that ACCA does not recognize this as a safeguard. Now, this is recommended by ACCA. So this one is the statement there is false. So what was the question? It was twisting, and it was saying the creation of corporate governance is not an ethical, so that statement is false because it is. They are saying it's not, but it is a safeguard. So to prevent errors, you should have a governance system. That's why we do the topic corporate governance. So as an organization, we should have a system that we are using that will prevent errors and that will prevent fraud. Now, let's move on. A product has a price elasticity of demand 1.5. Which of the following statements can be inferred from these figures? So this one we've talked about elasticity. Can you try this? Okay, what's the answer, please? A. No, it can't be A. A unitary charge is the question is not just saying elastic, it's unit elastic. Okay, Tafara is coming through with D, Terence D, Coletta D, and I think we can't dispute with that. Considering the votes, we have to go for D. But I can still hear pressure saying one diagram about the unit elastic. One is unit is supposed to be 1, but they are saying it's 1.5, not exactly 1. And it maybe a close one would be the second one, but the second one is saying if the price falls by 10, not by 10%. Remember, the formula says percentage change, not the price change over, because we can't calculate without knowing what is falling by 10%, what percentage is it? And it, so, because they say 10 pounds, not 10%. The formula says percentage change in price. Because it might fall by 10 pounds, but which is not 10%. If the price was $20 and if it falls by 10 pounds, it means it has actually fallen by 50%. Let's move to number 30. A firm of accountants installs a new information system that contains all relevant personal tax regulations for their clients. The system enables the firm to input the client's details, and the system will calculate the tax liability automatically. Then the question is saying, this is an expert system. Do you agree or do you not agree? Do you agree or you dispute that? Coletta is saying that is true. And Tavara and Michelle are also saying, no, we can't dispute with this step. So, yes, that is true. That is an expert system. We've talked about it. Now, let's move on to number 31. Which of the following would not be a benefit to a company of implementing a strong system of corporate governance? Would not be a benefit. So if the organization is to put in place a corporate governance system, which one would not be a benefit? So which one would not be a benefit? So A, yes. Faith is saying A, and it's true. Once we are implementing a corporate governance system, it means now there is more need for management. So it actually results in more costs for management than reducing the costs. And it, So in an environment with good corporate governance, it means we have more monitoring and we have systems that are in place, we have management that is in place. So it doesn't reduce the cost of management, but increases. It can reduce the chances of errors, but it can increase on the cost of management. 32, I think 32 have talked about this. What's the answer? Structural unemployment is caused by falling levels of aggregate demand. Are they saying the truth? Structural and aggregate demand in the same line. Does that make sense? Is this statement true or false? That one is false. That's a cyclical unemployment. So the type of unemployment there is cyclical, not structural. So that statement is false. Which of the following is not a benefit of a business reducing its impact on the environment? So if we reduce our impact on the environment, which one would not be a benefit? So which of the following is not a benefit to a business of reducing its impact on the environment? D, we have Michelle coming in with D. Others, what's your take? D, yes. And I also support D as well. The company will have a wider range of suppliers to choose from. No, that is not the benefit to the suppliers of the suppliers, but it's mostly the benefit to the customers and our social responsibility to our clients. Which of the results of technological changes in large businesses is delayering? And see, one of the results of technological changes in large businesses is delayering. What is delayering? What is delayering?
A.
Yes, A is correct. Delayering is removing the levels of management. And it feels certain levels of management are not necessary, we decide to reduce the levels of management. That is delayering. Then let's move on to number 35. Rupa is an accountant. She has verbally agreed with one of her clients, Oliver, to understate his earnings on his tax returns in order to reduce his tax liability in return for a large fee. Which feature of a simple contract is missing, meaning that the contract is not valid? So we are saying they are entering into an agreement where Rupa is the accountant is supposed to create a false record so that Oliver does not pay the actual amount of tax. Which one? What is missing on this contract? Michelle is saying A. Emmanuel is saying A. Yes, legality. It's not legal. What they are, the contract is based on things that are not legal. You can't deliberately understate the amount of tax that you're supposed to pay. Agreement is they've agreed about. Capacity is normally, is it someone who If it's to do with capacity, it can be age. Is it someone who is allowed to enter into a contract? Or you can't enter into a contract on behalf of another person if you're not an agent, you don't have the capacity. Consideration is the price. So what makes the contract void in this case is the legality. They are agreeing on things that are illegal. And it using Porter's 5 forces model to examine the profitability of an industry, which of the following will lead to higher profitability? Remember that here, the 5 forces model is used to analyze the competitive environment. So which one would lead to profit? Which one is a favorable issue? What would we prefer under the situations given? Sorry? Okay, Emmanuel is saying D. Michelle is saying D. Tafara is saying D. All those saying D, please tell me why.
Havana kona vyakaribisa hivi.
Oh, vari kutsvaga karebesa handiti? D is not correct. Find a correct one. Because the 5 forces model, remember what it talks about. So in this case, what would be profitable for us is C. If a new supplier enters the market, it means now we have the suppliers now they have less bargaining power. Now I have an option to choose from supplier A and supplier B. Because of their competition, it can actually lower down price. So to me, the firm that is selling, I buy from suppliers and sell. So kuanda kwema suppliers, it's not a problem. Kuanda kwema competitors, no problem. And so entrance of new suppliers actually means I now have more access to material and even sometimes can reduce, it can lead to lower prices if they compete. Number 37, which of the following would be part of a supply side policy? To reduce unemployment, supply side, we are working on boosting the factors of production, making sure it's easy for the suppliers. Supply side, want to correct the economy by helping it, by boosting supply. So what can you say? At A. Supply side, won't read that. So that one, it should be supply side we boost by providing, we can provide the labor. So increasing labor retraining schemes. This will make it easy for suppliers to access high quality labor in the market. So the correct answer there is B. J works for FGT Limited and has been asked to prepare a budget for his manager. Which of the following is a key purpose of budget preparation? So Jay works for FGT and has been asked to prepare a budget for his manager. Which one of the following is a key purpose for budget preparation? So why do we prepare budgets? So we've been asked by the manager to prepare a budget. So what can we say is the purpose of the budget? Precious is saying C. Precious, is it a legal requirement to prepare budgets? Farah is saying A. And A is correct. A budget can be used to communicate the targets, and it's for internal purposes. Budgets, we don't tell everyone our budgets. It's not a national budget. If it's a company's budget, we don't tell everyone. So it's not for external, anything external there, it doesn't work. A budget is for internal use, so it can be used to communicate our targets and the reasons behind our actions. And organizations, bankers can be classified as connected stakeholders. Is that true? That we can classify? Yes, Michelle is saying, already giving us an answer there. That is true. Precious is saying it's true. One more confirmation. Is that one true? Yes, connected stakeholders. The banks, we did talk about this last time. We can deal with them on a daily basis, but they are not part of the employees of the company. So we can bank our money every day, but these are not part of our employees. Now, number 40, using Mendelow's matrix, how would a stakeholder who has low interest and high power be classified? Low interest, but high power. C. So Tafara is saying C, Manu is saying C. So C, what is C saying? Keep satisfied. So yes, those with a low interest but high power, keep them satisfied, because if you don't, they are likely going to move and end up having high interest and high power. Number 41. H private limited company is planning to raise additional debt finance. So they want to raise finance and they want to use debt. They want to borrow finance. So which of the following statements regarding the decision is correct? If we're using debt finance, what is correct? Okay, our time is running out. Let me help out. So if we are using debt finance, remember debt we have to repay. So, okay, Michelle is saying D. Yes, equity is better to use equity if the returns are uncertain, because if you use debt, you pay fixed interest. What if you make a loss? If you're not certain, it's better to use equity, because equity, you have no obligation to repay them in the event that things don't go as planned. But if you use debt, you're forced to pay, even if things don't go your way. What sort of stakeholder might shareholders be described as? Shareholders, they fall under which category of stakeholders? Oh, number 42, they're saying 42, we skipped 42. Okay. Number 42, in terms of ACCA's ethical guidelines require members to what? So I have an A and a C. The most appropriate there is C. Act responsibly, honor any legal contracts, and conform to employment legislation. So A tends to be a bit more on the side of we are honoring the demands of the organization only, but we're supposed to at least honor the demands of the contract. So number 43. '43 is B, connected. Yes, that's true, Tafara. Shareholders, we classified them under connected stakeholders. R is currently considering the purchase of a new computerized accounting package to replace his existing manual system. Which of the following is likely to be an advantage of this? So they want to purchase a new computerized accounting package. So if you're using computers, what is the advantage of using computers over the manual system here? That's basic. You don't need to first of all have read it. What's the advantage? It's B, yes, because it increases speed. So if you're using a manual system, when there is pressure, when there's big data, manual system, it might not be effective. But a computerized system, it tends to be fast. Okay, let's move on. Number 45. Which of the following would be most likely to be undertaken by a Treasury Department? Treasury Department. I'm seeing C is coming through and C is correct. So they manage investment decisions and also foreign currency management. So that is the Treasury Department. Then our time is now up. Let's do number 46. The non-executive directors can perform an important role in corporate governance, but one of the following, and the non-executive directors can perform an important role in corporate governance in all but one of the following ways. So in other words, they are more like saying, the question is saying, which one is not what they do? They can do everything there except what? So the non-executive directors, they are not responsible for the decision making. So D, yes, Michelle is correct. D is wrong. The non-executive directors are not responsible for decision making. That's the responsibility of executive directors. Okay, so now I want to get into financial accounting. So we'll resume from here tomorrow as we finalize our revision. So please make sure you do attend tomorrow's session. I will also give you the final tips of what you need to prepare on, especially if you are intending to write very soon.